I caught my wife cheating with a gym bro, but the truth that shattered me was even worse. Heartbreak and betrayal, unveiled in the worst way possible. Title: My 32M wife, 31F, has been cheating. I found out in the worst way possible. Part 1: How we got here. Hey Reddit. Throwaway account for obvious reasons. I honestly don't even know where to begin, but I guess the start is as good a place as any. I've been married to my wife, Kayla, for just over 6 years. We've been together for 8. She was my college sweetheart, and the person I genuinely thought I'd grow old with. We've had our share of ups and downs, like every couple, but nothing I ever thought we wouldn't bounce back from. We didn't have kids yet, thank God, but we had been seriously discussing starting a family this year. For the most part, we had what I thought was a solid marriage. I work in IT, pretty demanding hours sometimes, but I always made time for her. She works in event planning and often travels for work functions, weekend conferences, client meetings, whatever. I trusted her, implicitly, but over the past few months, things started to feel off. She was getting more distant, snappy. Her phone, which used to sit face up on the counter, was now always face down or clutched tightly to her side. She started working out a lot more, dressing nicer for these so-called work events, and wearing a perfume I hadn't smelled on her in years. When I asked about it, she always had a reason. Always just tired, or stressed, or, ugh, you're being paranoid. She'd roll her eyes like I was a crazy person for even wondering. Gaslighting 101. I started to feel like I was losing it, like maybe I was just imagining things. But it wasn't in my head. I just didn't know yet how deep the rabbit hole went. Absolutely. Here's part 2. The first red flag that hit me like a truck. So, a few weeks ago, Kayla said she was going out of town for a client retreat at some lakeside resort a couple of hours away. She was weirdly vague about the details, which wasn't totally out of the ordinary, but this time it pinged something in my gut. Before she left, I asked, half joking, "Want me to come with you? Maybe I can work remotely and we can make it a mini getaway?" She didn't laugh, just gave me this forced smile and said, "It's really just for the clients and my team. It would be weird if you tagged along. I'll be back Sunday night." Cool. No big deal, right? Except that Saturday night, I was scrolling through Instagram when I saw something on one of her coworkers' stories. Nothing crazy, just a clip of the campfire setup at the retreat. But in the background, I see her, Kayla, sitting way too close to some guy in a flannel shirt, whispering and laughing with him, his hand on her knee, hers on his arm. It was blurry, quick, but unmistakably her. My stomach hit the floor. I watched that story maybe 20 times, zoomed in like some obsessed freak, telling myself it could be someone else, that I was jumping to conclusions. But then I saw her stupid green water bottle she takes everywhere. That was it. Game over. She hadn't mentioned any guy. She never told me anyone in particular would be there. Still, I tried to stay calm. Maybe it wasn't what it looked like. Maybe it was innocent. Maybe I was being paranoid. Again. But I knew. That was the moment I stopped trusting her. Here's part 3. What I found on her laptop that shattered everything. So, after seeing that Instagram story, I couldn't sleep. I just laid in bed, staring at the ceiling, mind racing. I don't know what finally pushed me over the edge, but the next morning, I did something I'd never done in all our years together. I checked her laptop. She usually takes it with her, but for whatever reason, she left it behind this trip. Maybe she thought I'd never look. She had her phone with her, which was obviously locked up tight. But the laptop? No password. Just clicked right in. I felt sick doing it. My hands were literally shaking. I hated that I'd let myself get to this point. That I had to get to this point. But I needed to know. My gut was screaming. I opened her email first. Nothing weird. She must have cleared it. Then I checked her downloads folder. And there it was. PDF. Flight itinerary, Cabo San Lucas. My heart stopped. It wasn't for a work trip. It wasn't even for the same dates as the retreat. It was for next month. A 4-day getaway. For 2 people. I kept digging. Found a hotel confirmation under her name. A boutique beachside resort. Romantic AF. Honeymoon vibes. And then, the final nail in the coffin. A WhatsApp backup file. I managed to extract it using an old trick I remembered from work. It took forever. But when I opened it up, I wish I hadn't. Hundreds of messages. Flirty texts. Nudes. Voice notes. I love you. Talk about our future. Her complaining about me. Saying she felt trapped. That she deserved more. His name was Jason. Apparently some guy from her gym. And he'd been in her life for months. Here's part 4. She came home like nothing happened. Sunday night rolls around. I hear the garage door. Kayla walks in, all smiles, acting like she just came back from a freaking spa retreat. She tosses her bag down, kicks off her shoes, and goes, "Hey babe. Miss me?" I swear to God, it took everything in me not to explode right then. She waltzes in with that smug little grin, gives me this half-assed hug like nothing's wrong. I just stood there, stiff as a board, heart pounding so hard I could barely see straight. I couldn't decide if I wanted to scream or cry or throw something through a wall. I asked, "How was the retreat?" She goes, "Ugh, exhausting. Clients are so needy. I barely got any sleep." Lies. 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 I'm staring at her, wondering if she's gonna crack. If she can see it in my eyes. But she doesn't flinch. She just keeps going on and on about the dumb food and the view and how she wishes I could have come. You. Literally. Told me. Not to. I wanted to confront her then, but something told me to wait. I wanted to gather everything. Make it airtight. No room for her to twist it. No gaslighting. No, you misunderstood. I needed to make her choke on the truth. So I nodded. Smiled. Pretended to believe her. I said, "Glad you had fun." She kissed me on the cheek and said, "You're being sweet tonight." I missed this. She missed this? She missed me being gullible. Here's part 5, the confrontation. I finally called her out. So I waited 2 days. 2 days of pretending. 2 days of smiling through gritted teeth while she scrolled through her phone with that little smirk. 2 days of acting like I didn't know she was planning a romantic beach escape with Jason while I was losing my damn mind. Then Tuesday night, I couldn't take it anymore. She was sitting on the couch in her usual spot, legs curled up, glass of wine in hand, watching The Bachelor like she wasn't a walking betrayal. I walked into the living room holding her laptop in one hand and my phone in the other. She looked up casually. "What's up?" I didn't say anything at first. I just sat across from her and opened the laptop, pulled up the Cabo confirmation, then handed her my phone with her WhatsApp messages on the screen. Her face drained instantly. She looked at the screen, then at me. Then back at the screen. Her whole body tensed up. For a second, she didn't say a word. Just stared at me like a deer in headlights. Then she started. "It's not what you think." I almost laughed. That was seriously her opening line. I said, "Really? Because it looks like you're cheating on me with some gym bro named Jason and planning a getaway with him while telling me you're stressed about work." She blinked fast. Looked like she was about to cry, but I swear I saw her calculating behind her eyes. It was just texting. Flirting. I swear I never slept with him. Lie number 1. We were just talking. I was confused. You've been distant lately. Lie number 2 and blame shift number 1. I said, "So, the nudes? The hotel reservation for 2? The voice memo where you called me a loser and said you can't wait to fall asleep next to him? That's just what, networking." She didn't even try to deny it anymore. Her expression changed. She dropped the act. Became cold. "Fine. You want to know the truth? I haven't been happy for a long time. You're boring. You don't get me. Jason actually listens. He makes me feel alive. Something you stopped doing a long time ago." There it was. No remorse. No apology. Just venom. Here's part 6, the moment she turned into someone I didn't recognize. After she dropped that bomb, "You're boring. Jason makes me feel alive." Something in me snapped. I wasn't even angry in that moment. I was numb. Hollow. Like my body was still there but the rest of me had just unplugged. I stared at her, wondering where the woman I married went. Because the person in front of me? That wasn't her. That was someone else. Cold. Cruel. Almost smug. She stood up, crossed her arms, and said, "You were never going to understand. I didn't want it to come out like this." Didn't want it to come out like this? You mean me finding out through a blurry Instagram story, confirming it with a backup of your sexts, and you gaslighting me until the very last second? She actually had the audacity to say, "If you were more present, maybe this wouldn't have happened." I laughed. I literally laughed. Not because it was funny, because I couldn't believe the mental gymnastics she was doing to justify cheating. I told her, "You had choices. You could have talked to me. You could have ended this like a decent human being. But instead you chose the coward's way out." She rolled her eyes. Rolled her eyes. "Don't act like you're some perfect husband. You spend more time with your computers than you do with me." I said, "And you spend more time with your side piece than you do with your soul." She threw her wine glass across the room. It shattered. And in that second, as red wine bled across the wall, I knew this was more than betrayal. This was war. Here's part 7. The lies got worse, and so did she. So after the glass-shattering tantrum, she stormed into the bedroom and slammed the door like I was the one being dramatic. I sat there in the silence, staring at the broken glass, thinking, did that really just happen? Did the woman I married really just throw a tantrum because I caught her cheating? A few minutes later, she came out like nothing happened. Calm, eerily composed. She sat down and said, "We can move past this. People survive worse." Excuse me? This woman legit thought she could just talk her way out of a full-blown affair like it was a disagreement over what to order for dinner. She even had the nerve to say she'd go to couples therapy if it makes you feel better. Not because she was sorry. Not because she wanted to fix anything. Just if it makes you feel better. And then the gaslighting started again. You don't know everything that's going on. Jason was just someone I talked to. You're making this bigger than it is. I told her flat out I've seen the messages. You said you loved him. You said you wanted a life with him. How's that not a big deal? And then the worst part, she smirked. Deadass smirked like she was proud of it. Maybe I did. Maybe I still do. I swear I saw red. Not because of Jason, not even because she cheated, but because she had zero shame. Zero regret. She wasn't the least bit sorry for what she'd done. She was just sorry she got caught. I told her I was sleeping in the guest room. She shrugged and said, whatever makes you feel like the victim. I left the room before I did something I'd regret. Here's part 8, the day I met Jason without her knowing. At this point, I knew I couldn't trust a word out of Kayla's mouth, so I did what any wounded, borderline insane husband might do. I decided to find out who Jason really was. Not through her. Through me. I did some light digging online. Took less than 30 minutes to find him. Turns out he wasn't just a gym guy, he was one of the trainers. That hit different. She wasn't just hooking up with some rando in her spin class. She was screwing someone she saw multiple times a week, someone she probably paid to make her sweat. In more ways than one. So I went to the gym. Did I sign up for a trial class just to get a look at him? You bet your ass I did. I walked in, scanned the floor, and there he was, tall, smug, way too many teeth in his smile, wearing a fitted black tee like he just crawled out of a men's health cover shoot. And I swear on everything, he was exactly the kind of guy she used to make fun of. Kayla hated dudes like that. She used to joke about how insecure guys were when they were overly ripped or wore muscle shirts in December. And yet, here we were. He didn't recognize me, of course. Just said, "What's up, man?" and asked if I wanted help getting started. I said no, I was just browsing. Watching. Absorbing. I didn't say a word about Kayla. But I noticed something, he flirted with everyone. Every woman in the gym. Married, single, didn't matter. He was the human equivalent of a spray tan. All surface, no soul. On the way out, I looked him dead in the eyes and said, "You really think someone who cheats with you won't eventually cheat on you?" He blinked, confused. What? I smiled. Give it time. Then I left. Here's part 8, the day I met Jason without her knowing. At this point, I knew I couldn't trust a word out of Kayla's mouth, so I did what any wounded, borderline insane husband might do. I decided to find out who Jason really was. Not through her. Through me. I did some light digging online. Took less than 30 minutes to find him. Turns out he wasn't just a gym guy, he was one of the trainers. That hit different. She wasn't just hooking up with some rando in her spin class. She was screwing someone she saw multiple times a week, someone she probably paid to make her sweat. In more ways than one. So I went to the gym. Did I sign up for a trial class just to get a look at him? You bet your ass I did. I walked in, scanned the floor, and there he was, tall, smug, way too many teeth in his smile, wearing a fitted black tee like he just crawled out of a men's health cover shoot. And I swear on everything, he was exactly the kind of guy she used to make fun of. Kayla hated dudes like that. She used to joke about how insecure guys were when they were overly ripped or wore muscle shirts in December. And yet, here we were. He didn't recognize me, of course. Just said, "What's up, man?" and asked if I wanted help getting started. I said no, I was just browsing. Watching. Absorbing. I didn't say a word about Kayla. But I noticed something, he flirted with everyone. Every woman in the gym. Married, single, didn't matter. He was the human equivalent of a spray tan. All surface, no soul. On the way out, I looked him dead in the eyes and said, "You really think someone who cheats with you won't eventually cheat on you?" He blinked, confused. What? I smiled. Give it time. Then I left. Here's part 9, when she found out I met him and lost her damn mind. I thought I had handled it pretty well. No drama, no confrontation. I was just gathering my thoughts, getting my head straight. But the moment I got home, I found out the one thing I didn't anticipate. Kayla had somehow found out that I went to the gym. I didn't tell her. I didn't post about it. I didn't even drop a hint. So how did she know? Turns out Jason didn't know how to shut up. A mutual friend of ours, someone who had no idea what was going on, saw me there and mentioned it to Kayla. He texted me later apologizing for the awkward situation. He had no clue how deep this went. But Kayla? She immediately jumped to conclusions. And, of course, she was pissed. When I got home, she was pacing in the living room, phone in hand, eyes wide with rage. She didn't even greet me. She just stood there, fists clenched. "What the hell were you doing at the gym today?" I just stared at her. No words. What was I supposed to say? Just wanted to look at the guy who's been screwing my wife behind my back? She didn't wait for an answer. She was already on one. "Are you seriously stalking him now? What's next? You going to follow me around? Take pictures of me with him? What the hell is wrong with you?" I finally spoke, trying to keep my voice steady. "No, Kayla. I'm not stalking anyone. But you're the one who decided to lie, cheat, and disrespect me. So, yeah, I went to see exactly who Jason was." She shot back, "You have no right to judge him. You have no right to judge me. This is your fault, you know? You've been checked out. You were never there for me. I had needs. Then she did the thing I never thought she would do. I'm in love with him. There it was. No shame. No apology. Just that cold, flat truth that hit me harder than any of her previous lies. And I'm leaving. Here's part 10, the fallout when she packed her bags. That was the moment I realized I was done. It wasn't the affair that broke me. It was her complete lack of care for the fact that I was a human being. That she could look me in the eye and casually tell me she was in love with someone else and then pack her bags like she was moving out for a weekend, not severing a 6-year marriage. She grabbed her things without saying much more. Just a few snide comments here and there, blaming me for everything. She made it sound like she was the victim. Like I was the one who had pushed her to cheat, pushed her to fall in love with another guy, and pushed her to throw away everything we had. I remember sitting on the couch, completely motionless, watching her pack her clothes. It was like I wasn't even there, like I was just a passive observer to the destruction of my own life. Every shirt she folded felt like a punch to the gut. Every jacket she shoved into her suitcase was another thing I realized I'd never get back. When she was done, she stood there in the doorway. I'll be staying with Jason for a while. I didn't even feel anger anymore. Just emptiness. I said, I hope you're happy. She didn't respond. She just walked out. And that was it. That was how our marriage ended. No fight, no heartfelt apology, no attempt at saving it. Just a cold, calculated exit that made me realize I had been living with a stranger. Here's part 11. What happened after she left, finding myself in the ruins. The first few days after she left were a blur. I don't think I slept for more than an hour or two at a time. I didn't eat much either. The house felt empty. So quiet. The echo of her absence was deafening. I would find myself staring at the walls, thinking about all the things we had done together, the trips, the nights in, the inside jokes. They all just felt hollow now. Like they never mattered. I remember sitting at the kitchen table one night, scrolling through photos of us from years ago. There were pictures of Kayla at my birthday, pictures from our wedding, photos of our first Christmas together. I wanted to feel something looking at those memories, but all I felt was this crushing weight of betrayal. I couldn't stop thinking about how everything had been a lie. How none of it was real. She had loved me, sure, but only until something better came along. And it wasn't just her leaving. It was the fact that she had completely checked out of the marriage long before I'd even known something was wrong. She had fallen in love with Jason while I was still putting in the work, still believing in us, still thinking we had a future. I had a few friends reach out to check on me, but I pushed most of them away. I didn't want to hear their "I told you so" or try to explain the mess I was in. What was there to explain? My wife had cheated on me and she didn't even have the decency to feel guilty about it. At one point, I realized I couldn't just sit around wallowing in misery. I had to find a way to pick up the pieces. I signed up for therapy. I also started hitting the gym. Maybe not for the same reasons as Jason, but for my own sanity. The physical exertion helped clear my head and I started getting back into a routine, something to ground me. I joined a few social groups, spent time with my family, and slowly, very slowly, started to feel like myself again. I even picked up some of my old hobbies, reading, playing guitar, things that had gotten pushed aside when I was with Kayla. It felt strange at first. Like I was relearning who I was. But the hardest part? The hardest part was realizing that I didn't miss her. I missed the idea of her. The person I thought she was. The person I had married. But the woman who had cheated, who had gaslight me, who had left without an ounce of remorse. I didn't miss her. I just missed the life I thought I had. Here's part 12, moving on, how I finally started letting go. It took a long time to fully accept that Kayla wasn't coming back. I mean, even after she left, there was that small part of me that kept hoping she'd have some moment of clarity, hoping she'd reach out and say she was sorry, hoping we could somehow fix this. But the truth kept slapping me in the face. She didn't want me anymore. She wanted him. And as much as that stung, I eventually came to realize something important. I didn't need her. It wasn't easy. There were nights when I'd lie awake, replaying the conversations, wondering what I could have done differently, what I had missed. But slowly, as the days passed, I stopped caring. I stopped questioning myself. I stopped seeking answers to things that would never make sense. It wasn't just about her betrayal anymore, it was about me. About rebuilding who I was after all of this. I started dating again. Nothing serious at first, just some casual dinners and drinks with people I met through friends. There were moments I felt guilty, like maybe I was moving on too soon. But then I remembered Kayla had already moved on long before I even knew what was going on. She didn't deserve the hold she had on my life anymore. One night, I went on a date with this woman named Sophie. She was kind, funny, and didn't try to rush things. We talked for hours, and for the first time in a long while, I actually felt seen. It wasn't about comparing her to Kayla, it was about realizing that I was capable of moving forward. That I could find someone who would value me, someone who wasn't going to betray my trust. Sophie and I are still seeing each other, though it's been slow. I'm not in any rush. But what I've realized is that this whole process is a journey. And I'm finally okay with taking my time. I also realized that forgiveness was something I was never going to get from Kayla. So I had to forgive myself. for ignoring the signs, for letting things go on for so long. I had to stop blaming myself for what happened. I didn't let Kayla control my narrative anymore. Here's part 13, the final word, what I've learned and what I'd tell anyone else in my shoes. Looking back on everything, I can honestly say that this whole experience has changed me. And in some ways, I'm grateful for it. Grateful because I learned a lot about myself, about what I deserve, and about the kind of person I want to be moving forward. The first thing I learned? Trust your gut. I should have listened to those small, nagging feelings from the beginning. The ones that told me something was off when she started being distant, when the late nights at work started piling up. I was so eager to believe the best in her that I ignored the signs. That was my biggest mistake, and it won't happen again. If your partner starts acting different, don't ignore it. Don't let them convince you that you're crazy or paranoid. Pay attention. You know when something's wrong. Second thing, you can't change someone who doesn't want to change. I kept thinking I could fix things, that if I loved her harder or paid more attention, things would get better. But that was never my responsibility. The truth is, if someone doesn't value what you bring to the table, there's no amount of effort you can put in to make them stay. It took me a long time to understand that I wasn't the problem. She was the one who checked out. She was the one who chose to cheat. That wasn't on me. The third thing? It's okay to let go. Letting go of Kayla was hard. I had to let go of the idea of who she was, who I thought she could be. I had to let go of the future I imagined. And honestly, it hurt like hell. But I'm learning that sometimes the best thing you can do for yourself is walk away from people who don't respect you or treat you the way you deserve to be treated. I still don't have all the answers. There are still moments when I feel like I'm not fully healed, like I'm walking around with a bruise that hasn't completely faded. But I also know this, I'm stronger than I was before. I'm not the man I was when I married her. I'm more self-aware. I know my worth now. And I'll never let anyone treat me the way she did. If there's one thing I'd tell anyone who's going through something similar, it's this: don't wait for closure. Sometimes it never comes. And that's okay. You'll find your own closure. It might not be the way you envisioned it, but you'll get there. You'll realize that you're enough on your own and that you are the only one who has control over your happiness moving forward. And lastly, know when to walk away. It might feel like everything is falling apart, but it's actually the first step in rebuilding something better. Trust yourself. Trust the process. There's more waiting for you beyond the pain. So here I am. A little wiser, a little scarred, but way more whole than I was when this started.